In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to turn your Instagram into a coaching sales machine using what I call the Flywheel Strategy. I'll walk you through some of the challenges that we actually face with selling coaching in 2026, Google's 7-11-4 rule, how to actually feed this flywheel that I'm talking about, and then writing out what I call the lag effect. Now, if we haven't met before, my name is Josh Bowers. I've been in the online coaching space since December of 2019. The Bikini Body Project was my first coaching offer, scaled that to around 300 clients. At one point, I had 100 active clients on the team, and it was just me running that business. Did about $500,000 in revenue, closed that down in December of 2022. I then spent 6 months figuring out what my next move was going to be in business, where I then decided to jump the fence and help other online fitness coaches do exactly what I did. So now Freedom Coach is the business that I run. Done about $1 million in sales in that business to date. Now, the purpose of these videos is just to walk you through the things that have worked for me over the years and my clients, what hasn't worked for me, there's been plenty of those, and then what I'm currently doing and what my clients are currently doing to scale our online coaching businesses. Now, some of the challenges that we face with selling coaching in 2026 is AI slop. Now, what I mean by this is, and you would see this online, is that there is so much content going out now, it's crazy, but majority of the content that is being created is just AI crap. It's just generic sounding things. It all has the same sort of verbiage, the same pacing, the same sentence lengths, the same frameworks, the same hooks. It all just sounds the same, and it's just sloppy, if you ask me. The next thing that is causing us issues is that there is a lot of noise out there. I don't believe that there's a lot of competition. Like, you could look at it through the lens of, we have lots of competition out there, and don't get me wrong, there definitely is, but I more so call it noise these days, because I don't think that really there is that much competition, because most people are just relying on AI to create their content. So I think the space as a whole is very noisy right now, and there is a little bit of competition. But this is one of the challenges that we face, is that it is harder to stand out because it is so noisy in the space right now. And as a result of this, we now are sitting in a trust recession. I've been talking about this since I started Freedom Coach. This was one of the main sort of angles I've been using in my marketing from day one. And I still truly believe that this is the case. I almost forecasted this before it started to happen and before people started talking about it. And if you look at the space as a whole, there is a lot of skepticism out there. A lot of people have worked with a coach before and they've been burned because they were overpromised and underdelivered to. Not only that, is because it's so noisy and there are so many different ways to approach getting an outcome, this also causes a lot of skepticism in the market as well, which drives down trust as a whole. So this is the main reasons as to why I see we have so many issues with selling coaching in 2026. And Google, interestingly enough, came out with a study not long ago where they came up with this rule of 7-11-4. And long story short, on the study, what they were essentially talking about is that for somebody to purchase something from you, whether it's a product or a service, that consumer needs to have consumed 7 hours of your content. Now, if you sit with that for a moment, that's a lot of content for someone to sit there and watch. It's essentially 1 hour a day over a week, which is not that much. But if you are someone who is just, let's say, relying on 5-second text on screen reels, it's going to take a very long time to develop a relationship with that potential client. They then mentioned that there needs to be 11 different touch points. So what this means is that someone isn't going to just watch one 7-hour long video of yours and then be like, yep, damn, that person's the one, that's the coach that I want to go with. They need to have had 11 different engagements with you over a period of time. What that period of time is just how fast somebody is going to consume the content. But if you think about it this way, they will need to have seen a couple of your reels, maybe watched a YouTube video or two, maybe a VSL video if you have one, a podcast. Maybe it's a long form piece of content that you've written. Maybe you have an email list and they've had some touch points there. They essentially need to have multiple touch points with you on multiple different platforms. And that's what the number 4 here is 4 different mediums. So most most of us generally have one medium or two mediums. So for me, I've got YouTube, email that I do periodically, and then quite heavy on the Instagram side of things. But I would also add paid traffic in there as well as a fourth one. Paid traffic is under the umbrella of Instagram, but it's a different touch point that you're kind of having with someone. So even though it's the same platform, I'm still seeing and viewing that as a different medium. But the whole point of this is to really show you just how much somebody needs to consume from you before they are willing to hand you a few $1,000s for your coaching program. And this is honestly where a lot of coaches go wrong, is their entire brand and content strategy is literally posting 5-second text on screen type reels that are trending at the moment and hoping that they go viral. And that's their entire strategy. There's barely any talking content. There's barely any other touch points besides these super short reels, which is great for getting attention and traffic. Don't get me wrong. It's going to fill your top of funnel for sure, but it's not creating any depth to your actual audience. It's only creating width, right? It's only scratching the surface with this really short type of content that you may be posting. So I would highly encourage you to start creating more content to increase this 7 hours of consumption. Now, I believe that we can fast track this process by implementing the flywheel itself. So how do we actually feed the flywheel? Well, the important thing to understand is that in 2026, and this has been like this for years now, but people don't buy coaching anymore. They don't buy your 12-week program. They don't buy your macros and your training splits, and they don't buy your mindset course and your cute little educational platform and your Canva resources and recipe guides and whatever other stuff that you sort of include in your services. People are no longer buying that stuff. They used to. Many years ago, that would be the thing, right? Because there wasn't any noise. There wasn't this trust recession. Now, people buy the coach. They buy you. And this is why it's so important now to create what I call your category of one. So this is where you're doubling down on your own personal brand. You are basing the niche or the ICP on yourself. Most people just go after a particular market these days, which, don't get me wrong, still works, but it's really hard to try and build a brand and build a trust when people buy the coach now. They don't buy the coaching. So if you're a man and you're working with women in a, let's say, 40s weight loss offer, like women in their 40s, it's going to be very hard to build a brand around that, because it's going to limit you with what you can and can't talk about within your content. It doesn't mean that it won't work. It will most definitely work. But these days, from my experience and what I see within my own business and within my clients, and this is literally what I'm focusing on right now, is basing the market on myself. I'm just documenting my own journey. I'm giving you the behind the scenes on my business. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about business. I'm sharing and showing everything so I can create my category of one. This video here is it happening in real time, if you haven't already picked up on. The next thing is KLT. So this is know, like, and trust. The only way you're going to build massive amounts of KLT is by creating content and having so much content out there that people can just go and consume it and binge it to build up this 7 hours of consumption. And the only way that you're going to build know, like, and the big one here is trust, is by focusing on having an 80-20 split within your content. So 80% of your content needs to be expert related content. The tips, the tricks, the values, the insights, the stories about business, the client results, the proof, your own story, your own results. You need to give them as much information and as much content as possible to really position yourself as an authority. Most people over-index in this area and they miss out on the other 20%. What is that other 20%? Great question. This is where you're bringing your own personal life into your brand, and this is how you create your category of one. So this is where you're talking about non-business related topics. This is not videos about how to track your macros, or videos about why hormonal health is important, or videos about training split breakdowns and things like that. This is where you're creating content, where you're showing people behind the scenes of your own life, what's happening in your life. It's carousel dumps of all different photos showing people what you're doing. It's videos talking about things that don't really have anything to do with coaching at all, but they still fit within the overall picture of like, I'm an online coach, this is my life, blah, 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 blah. So you have to have a good split in the content. You can no longer hide behind, here are 3 ways to get into a calorie deficit. Like you can't hide behind that kind of content anymore, because it comes back to this here. People don't buy coaching. Most coaches have already done a fantastic job at positioning themselves as someone who is extremely smart. We know that you know your stuff, but I want to know who you are, because people buy you. They don't buy your brain. They don't buy your knowledge. They want to develop a relationship with you. I can log on to ChatGPT right now and get all of the information that I need within seconds. But having someone there that I feel like I could go and get, I mean, I don't drink alcohol, but I could go and get a beer with, or have a meal with, or someone that I could hang out with on the weekends. I want to feel like I could be good friends with you. And that's what you really have to remind yourself of in coaching specifically, is that it's relational. It's not transactional. People are buying you these days, and they're buying the relationship. They're buying the implementation from someone who they know, like, and trust. This is why it's so important to be showing more of your own life in your content. Now, this is almost like a secret weapon, is your Instagram stories. I believe that this is the accelerant for the flywheel, and I think this is how you can almost override this 7 hours of consumption. I'm not saying that you can get away with just posting a couple of reels and a couple of stories and people are going to want to hand you thousands of dollars, because it's just not how it works. Think about it like a stranger who finds you on the internet is not going to watch 1 or 2 really short videos from you and then be like, I might give this person a few $1,000s to help me. They want to know, like, and trust you before they're going to do that. And the Instagram stories is essentially a free retargeting ad that you can run. Now, what a retargeting ad is when you're putting content back in front of someone's face again and again and again. You're targeting that person over and over and over with paid traffic. That's, a term from that world. But your Instagram stories are very much the same thing. You have, I wouldn't say complete undivided access, but for that moment in time that that person is on your stories, you've got their full attention. And if you were doing things like your good morning post, which if you follow me, you would see me do this. If you are posting reflections about life, business, client results, you're talking about problems and giving solutions, detailing situations that your prospect finds themselves in from their point of view. You're talking about your own life and showing your own life. You're showcasing your work, which is, you actually doing work. It's showcasing client results and proof and behind the scenes of your day-to-day life. When you can document and showcase all of this here through your Instagram stories, I truly believe that it's like throwing gas on the fire for this flywheel. I would encourage you to be doing this every single day, because this is how you build that relationship. This is how you build that trust. And I'm going to keep saying this like a broken record, but this is why people buy coaching these days, coaches these days. They don't buy coaching. They're buying you. And if they don't truly know who you are, because the only content that you put up is just value-driven type content, then why is someone going to want to buy from you? If you're a client of mine watching this, there's a very good chance that you bought into me and the lifestyle that I have, not just the education and the knowledge that I have. So it's really important that you focus on all of this stuff here to feed that flywheel as much as possible. And if you don't understand what a flywheel is, it starts off with very low momentum, and then it builds and then it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds like a snowball effect, right? It accelerates with momentum, and you have to continue feeding it for it to maintain and build momentum. Now, the last part of this is understanding the lag effect, because all of this here, you would be like, oh, okay, well, cool, I can do all this stuff. That's easy. I'm going to make some sales tomorrow. It's not how it works. There is a massive lag effect that you'll experience when you're doing this type of work with your content, your stories, and building your brand. So instead, you have to really focus on the daily inputs. So think about it this way. Let's say a client is trying to lose weight. In that first week of them tracking their macros, they don't see really any changes. but you are extremely pedantic about that client hitting their macros. Why are you so pedantic about that? Because you know that if they consistently stick to those macros over a period of time, that's the key, they are going to lose weight because they stuck to the daily inputs. It's the same thing within your business, is that you need to focus on putting up daily stories, putting up daily content, sharing your life to build KLT. When you focus on these daily inputs, you don't get that immediate drop on the scale today. But just like the farmer who tends to his farm every single day for sometimes months on end, eventually reaps the harvest. But he wouldn't reap the harvest if he wasn't tending to the farm right back in the beginning. And this is what you need to do within your business, and this is exactly what I need to do and am doing, is just continually showing up day in, day out, and exercising patience and persistence, knowing that if I'm focusing on the right daily inputs, the right results will come through. The work you do today will not bear fruit today, but it will in the future. And the work that you don't do today is exactly that. You're not going to get any fruit in the future because you didn't do anything today. But this is how you turn your Instagram into a client sales machine.